Thank you again for joining us, and let's get started. Today, we'll be hearing from two of our 2021 Energy Star Partners of the Year. The Partner of the Year award is awarded annually to partners that have demonstrated leadership, innovation, and excellence through robust energy management practices, the effective use of Energy Star tools, and active participation in the partner community. Today's presentation is also the first of several exciting award winner webinars scheduled for this year. You can register to attend these other sessions by visiting the link listed here. As mentioned, the slides for this presentation will be sent to all participants of the webinar today, so you'll be able to relocate this link later. I am now very pleased to introduce today's speakers. We'll be hearing from Josh Schubert, the Director of Energy Engineering at Gobi, followed by Jason McIntyre, the Director of Real Estate Operations and Sustainability at USAA Real Estate. Both Josh and Jason will be speaking about making the business case for improving the energy performance of buildings and getting necessary buy-in from stakeholders through the lens of local benchmarking law compliance and adding value to real estate investments. I will now pass things over to Josh to get us started, and Josh, I will be making the presenter, so you can go ahead and switch the slides.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jasmine. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Josh Schubert. I'm a Director of Energy Engineering at Gobi. I've been with the company since its founding in 2009. So we've been active in Energy Star and building certifications for 12 years now. I am a licensed professional, a licensed professional engineer with a degree in mechanical engineering, and one of EPA's, or on the EPA's most active licensed professional group for working on building certifications. A little bit about Gobi is we are been Partner of the Year since 2014, 6 of those with sustained excellence. We do quite a few Energy Star awards. I think we do about 10% of all Energy Star awards throughout the US and Canada. So we have a lot of processes and best practices in place to take care of Energy Stars for our customers. And it also goes hand in hand with the benchmarking that we do for those properties. What is Gobi? Gobi is a utility. We're both a utilities data platform to make it easy for our customers, and we make it easy for our customers to get us this utility data, and we can use it for lots of ESG programs, environmental, social, and governance programs, both on the asset level certifications and for the portfolio level programs that we work on. GRESB is a big one for us as well. We were the first GRESB data partner. We submit a lot of funds, and really that's one of the key offerings with our services for Energy Star and for GRESB. Today, we're going to talk about benchmarking. So hopefully I can teach everyone a little bit, or everyone can learn a little bit something new about benchmarking and the tools that are out there and are available. I assume that a lot of the folks attending this webinar have some working knowledge of what the Energy Star program is, and a little bit of knowledge about Energy Star Portfolio Manager, because you'll see a few screens on there. But first off, we can kind of start with some of the basics on what is utility benchmarking. And really it's a comparison metric. So we want to show what is my building doing compared to everyone else, and it has everything to do with getting access to the utilities and seeing what the energy and the water and sometimes even waste compare to other properties. These motivations, they really vary. You kind of start with a direct comparison and just how are we doing as a building? Comparing the benchmark for your building, the EPA has been very kind in that they were able to come up with what is a comparable building for commercial and multifamily buildings. So they created the Energy Star score, which is based off of the government CBEC survey. There are some motivations for getting a regulatory, meeting regulatory requirements. So there are certain cities and states throughout the US and in Canada that require this energy and sometimes water data to get submitted to the municipality under threat of fine. There are also voluntary ESG programs like GRES that customers of ours like to pursue, or public or private like to pursue. In some instances, they may not consider that to be voluntary because they need that for their investor participation. Some more basics on benchmarking. What are we trying to compare here? We want to compare 12 months of whole building data. So the benchmark that the EPA created, so this Energy Star program, looks at 12 months of whole building data, so inclusive of your common areas, tenant areas. Sometimes it includes the parking areas if you can't separate that off your bill. So we need to make sure we get access to those bills, and then have some basic building information like the square footage or square meters if you're in Canada. Certain attributes like how many people are in an office, how many computers do they have. In a data center, you need access to the IT kilowatt hours. Retail scenario of cash registers, or there's a lot of different types of properties that the EPA supports with the Energy Star program. And thankfully, everybody gets to use Energy Star Portfolio Manager for this system. Luckily, too, the EPA is very, very good at creating reference documents. So if you have questions on how to benchmark a building, the EPA is a really great resource for how to do that. Well, and so am I too. We can all be a resource for everyone to how to properly benchmark a building. So more on this direct comparison, you'll see a screenshot here of Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And what Energy Star, what the EPA created was this median property with, as shown as a 50 on the page here. So comparing your property to the median property, you get an Energy Star score. This property here gets a score of 90. And that whole system is based on energy, or source energy per square foot. And in this system, you can input things like you need to input the energy, but then you can input the cost. And what this direct comparison will get you is, how much should I be spending if I want to raise my score? So in this case here, simply you can put in a target for raising the score by 4 points and see how much money you need to save in your annual utility bills in order to reach that goal. Works very similar if the building is a 70 and you have a goal to meet, earn Energy Star Award certification and hit that 75. You can input that target number and see how much energy and cost needs to get saved in order to hit that benchmark. Providers like Gobi, we have additional data tools and analytics that are available for properties. So a neat little chart that we have available to us is a bubble graph here. On the bottom axis, you'll see the size of the building, and on the left axis, or on the vertical axis, is the usage. Size of the bubble is the cost, but you kind of see on analytics like this a good comparison of what properties are doing good and which ones may need a little bit of assistance in trying to reduce their usage. As a building gets larger, you'll see the use go up, and the buildings that are kind of above that trend line tend to be using more than their peers. The ones below are doing well compared to their peers. So if you wanted to kind of create a plan for energy efficiency for your buildings, I would target some of the ones that are using more than they should be relative to their peers. Another neat tool that's available to us, this one's from the EPA. The EPA puts out the list of certified buildings. So you can see, you can zoom into your area of the country and see which buildings around you are certified. The building shown here is the 33 North LaSalle. That's where Gobi's headquarters is here in Chicago. And there's a lot of information that it tells you. It tells you how many years certified that the building has, and even the score. So that's kind of interesting, and that the EPA will you can plug into their system and see which buildings. Now it will only the EPA's list of certified buildings will only show buildings that have earned the award. So in the 21 year history of Energy Star, you can see which buildings have actually been above that 75 and earned the award. But it won't show you the buildings that have not earned the award. With regulatory compliance, so these are buildings that are in districts that have requirements to meet. There's requirements that buildings need to send this utility data into the city. So whether it's a city or a state, or even mortgage lenders. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have certain mortgage requirements for green loans that people need to comply with in order to keep their mortgage going. But they get a good rate. So it's an interesting program that I've seen a lot of good activity with in the past couple of years. So, like I said, with the Energy Star Portfolio Manager, it's great that all of these cities that do the Energy Star or do the regulatory compliance, everyone uses Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So you really only need to use a single tool in order to meet that compliance. On this screen here, though, we've got 3 dozen locales that need this benchmarking. So there's a lot of different cities. There's a lot of different templates and a lot of different reports that need to be able to report into each city. So also included in this is the state of California, the province of Ontario. There's a new announcement that I'm excited to help everyone know more about. The state of Colorado is going to be coming online, so we're going to have 2 whole states in the U.S. that need to benchmark. And additionally, we have a new province in Canada that's going to need to report. So I heard that the province of British Columbia is going to be mandating some reporting too. So certainly, as more and more cities come online with benchmarking, then it makes it easier to get access to the data, and we'll talk about data in a moment. But each area represented here has utility providers that need to help buildings obtain that whole building energy data. There's some interesting tools that pop up as a result of doing the regulatory energy benchmarking. Here's a little screenshot of the City of Chicago's database, and there's a lot of information that pops up on these types of screens, or these types of tools. I've seen them show up in all kinds of cities, Seattle, San Francisco, and they all have beautiful databases that people can go and look and see what their neighbors are doing if you want to. But in this case, you can see a lot of information about 33 North LaSalle, including its size and Energy Star score and how much energy they use. These databases are publicly available for the cities that put them out. It's also interesting from a service provider standpoint. If a customer comes to me and doesn't know, how to set up their building, how to set up their own Energy Star Portfolio Manager profile, I can get a pretty good snapshot of how to build a profile for their building just by coming to the city's database and seeing what has been reported on before. Because a lot of these cities have been doing regulatory compliance. San Francisco's been doing it for close to a decade. But Chicago's been doing it for probably five, 6 years now or so. The requirements really vary across the board. So there's different due dates. There's different sizes of buildings that need to require that need to report the different kinds of buildings, whether it's strictly commercial buildings, commercial and multifamily buildings. Some states and cities require industrial buildings. So you really got to look at what are the requirements for each area of a building. It keeps the service providers on our toes because we have to be on top of every single one that comes out and know which of our building customers meet each individual requirement and stick by the due dates. There's different data requirements. So some areas want energy data only. Some areas ask for water data but don't require it. Some require water data. So thankfully no one requires waste hauling data yet, but it could be in the cards. The fines are all over the place too. So some have small late fees, some have considerable late fees, and some threaten to offer late fees, but don't quite have them put in place yet. So there's certainly a mixed bag of what the requirements are based on your location. There was a question too that if you have multiple requirements, so maybe you have to submit to the city of San Francisco and to the state of California. Well, it's slightly, it is nicer that the way that dual requirement is the first person or the first municipality sends it to the second one. So if you submit to the city of San Francisco, then they forward that data to the state of California. So you really only have to do it once, but that's definitely a common question that pops up. And okay, so how do we really get into benchmarking? How do we do this? A lot of people can do it by themselves. So this is, I saw a lot of questions on costs. Like the Energy Star Portfolio Manager, that's a free tool. There's no cost to do Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And the cities that require this type of compliance, they primarily want everyone to participate. So they're, at least in the case of Chicago, they're not actively looking to go find people that don't comply. They really just want the data. They want everyone to participate and people to be working on this. And all of these cities, because they each have individual requirements, that they put out a lot of materials that kind of walk everyone through step by step. So the EPA has materials, and each city has materials on how to specifically meet the requirements for that city or state. And the step-by-step documents that they have, for the most part, are really good. There's a couple of hoops that you have to jump through. One thing that's really kind of difficult if you're new to this is trying to find this reporting link. So each city has their own special reporting link that you need to send the data to. And I guess that's the only thing that I find very difficult. But well, that's because I'm familiar with getting utility data. Utility data is probably the #1 most difficult thing to get your hands on. But once you have the utility data, then jumping through the steps of making sure you have the correct and accurate profile, and actually transmitting the electronic data to the city is probably the next couple steps that are in the process. How do you know if you have to comply? Most buildings will get a little flyer in the U.S. mail, mailed to the building, mailed to the owner. Usually goes straight to the property management office or chief engineer office. Sometimes it'll get mailed to the owner of record, which may be out of state. But eventually someone will take a snapshot of that and get it to the building and tell them they have to report to this the system. And of course, there are third-party providers like Gobi who are more than happy to make sure that we can take care of all the buildings, get them in on time, make it easy for our customers to get access to the utility data and get it into Energy Star Portfolio Manager the proper ways, and try to make it easy for our customers just to do your regular day jobs. If you're running buildings, you may not have a whole lot of time to try to get into Energy Star Portfolio Manager and type in your data and get it transmitted to the city so you're in compliance. So that's what there's a lot of service providers out there that we can certainly help our buildings, help our customers stay in compliance. I did get a question on what do you do about a vacant building? So that's an interesting question too, because a lot of these cities, they don't necessarily want your vacant data because it's not very representative of what a building should be consuming. So it kind of skews their data set. So most of the regulatory compliance zones or areas in municipalities, they'll allow for exemptions. So so in the case of an exemption, maybe you don't want to maybe you don't want to benchmark. So there are plenty of use cases for filing an exemption. One of them being vacancy. So you'll have to check each individual ordinance for what they consider to be vacant. Another one can be change of ownership. In the case of buildings, it's hard to get access to someone else's data if you're a new owner. Sometimes it's hard to get access to the older or prior management's data. So given data privacy laws and things like that. So a lot of municipalities will offer an exemption for change of ownership. There's also certain exemptions that apply for building hardship. So check the local rules and ordinance to see if you apply for you can apply for the exemption. A lot of the exemptions, they want you to do it before the due date, otherwise they won't grant you that exemption. Once we get past benchmarking, there's a lot of things that we can do with this data. So with the data, we want to look for opportunities. So we looked at some of those comparison metrics between the high performing buildings and the lower performing buildings. So you want to identify which ones, and then maybe there's some low hanging fruit that people can look for getting some good savings in. You can measure the efficiency of your building, and you can pursue these awards and try to increase the asset value of your building. So if you've got two comparable buildings and all things are the same, if there's a building that it has an Energy Star award versus one that doesn't, tenants may tend to gravitate towards the one that does have that Energy Star certification. And the Energy Star award, that's a great accolade for a building. You can pursue that annually. Gobi has a subscription model where you can sign up for us to track your Energy Star and get that in every single year and make sure that that people are keeping up with that award. One thing that just came in my inbox this week was the 2021 top cities. So the EPA has been pumping out this email for the last handful of years, and it's always fun to see which ones are the top cities. So Los Angeles, congratulations, you are at the top of the list with 546 certified buildings. They also show mid-size and small cities, mid-size being San Jose as the top winner, and Jackson, Michigan as the top small city. Another interesting thing is of the top 10 buildings with, or top 10 cities with the most certified buildings, only 2 don't have city ordinance, and that's Houston and Dallas. I like to show a little bit about best practices to get higher scores. Very common things that people forget or miss or do incorrectly is getting that gross asset area, gross square footage. The whole system for Energy Star is based on energy per square foot. So the smaller your energy, the better. The larger your square footage, the better. Most people don't create additional square footage for their building, but they do want to make sure that you're using the largest number possible. So the largest number possible is going to be inclusive of your stairwells and your mechanical rooms, and making sure that the entire site of the entire interior square footage of a building is taken care of. Another thing that can help your score is if the parking, lighting, and security is on your utility bill account and not broken out separately. You can get some credit by accounting for the parking, making sure your units are correct on energy. I can't tell you how many times I've seen kBTU used instead of kilowatt hours, or CCF used instead of therms. Happens more than you think if someone built their own profile. And there's getting accurate counts on occupants and computers. Accurate count on occupants has been a very big challenge this past 15 months, as you can imagine. So it's been a lot of changes and a lot of things to revise in the program to make sure our buildings that we're benchmarking are accurate and have the correct data. And then kind of getting towards the back end of my presentation to hand it over to Jason, we've got ESG programs and recognition. So benchmarking, getting access to this utility data and this energy data, it plays a big part in what portfolios want to do for their sustainability strategy, their lead, whether they want to pursue GRES, SASB, CDP. There's a whole alphabet soup of acronyms that work its way into ESG, another acronym programs. So in order to pursue all of these programs for commercial real estate, we're very heavily focused on that E factor because buildings consume energy. So we need that energy, and actually energy and water, and a lot of times waste data too, to be able to participate effectively. So the stakeholders involved, I mean, they're going to be your property management, your asset management, your investor relations. Doesn't matter if you're public or private. They all want to be able to show their company, show their organization in the best light, and that's what these ESG programs will do. And so to kind of put a little bow on this at the end, what a service provider like Gobi, we're going to take all this data and make it as easy as possible for our customers and people that want to buildings that want to pursue programs like Energy Star and GRES, and be able to effectively utilize and acquire their energy and water and waste data. So feel free to get in touch with me. I'm happy to provide a rapid assessment of anyone's portfolio or single building. Doesn't matter. I love talking about energy efficiency and benchmarking and things like that. So please feel free to get in touch and reach out to me. So thank you, everyone. And I'll pass it on to Jason and talk more about best practices.
Thanks, Josh. Hello, everyone. My name is Jason McIntyre. I'm the Sustainability Director at USA Real Estate. excited to be sharing with you a little bit here, and especially to focus on, buy-in with your internal team, also stakeholders, and understand some of the challenges and opportunities that you might face. I'm based in San Antonio, Texas. USA Real Estate is actually a standalone investment advisor at this point. We originally were a subsidiary of the bank and an insurance company you may be familiar with, but we're a standalone investment advisor still representing USAA and approximately 100 different institutional investor clients. Also, with this new transition, we're taking on some unique business lines with whether it's private wealth, we have a credit lending component. We also have some sister companies that are doing, preferred equity, debt, and other things. So kind of a full shop of positions in the capital stack, but I know not everyone in this session is a real estate specific or maybe an investor real estate specific group, but I think a lot of this will tie into how we think about energy, how we think about creating buy-in and ultimately adopting efficiency into your regular practices. In 2001, USA Real Estate made a commitment to not only benchmark, but to participate in Energy Star through the initial guidelines for energy management. And that initial commitment followed with the following year applying for the Energy Star Partner of the Year award, which we won, and we've won consecutively every year since 2002. In fact, we're 19 times winning and the longest running real estate firm that participates in the Energy Star Partner of the Year program. So excited to be sharing in this Partner of the Year webinar series because we've learned quite a bit, and I've been here at the organization since 2014. And, over that time period, we've been able to, I'm looking at a few of my notes, but we've actually reduced our carbon emissions by 330 million pounds of CO2. Our average Energy Star score for our portfolio that first year when we benchmarked was a 48, so that's a floor area average. This last year in our Partner of the Year data, we averaged an 82, 81.7, so just about 82. And, we have a churning portfolio, so we often acquire properties that are not yet benchmarked or they're not yet performing well. And that's part of, our strategy within our asset management group and sustainability to look at how we can optimize efficiency, reduce the energy spend, and ultimately be more efficient. And even with the feedback status swap that happened a few years ago, we've been able to maintain that weighted average and up to 82. I mean, it did dip for a bit, but we're happy to see our success rolling out. And in my role, I certainly participate at the asset level engagement efforts, but a lot of it is centralized and rolling up to how does a fund or a portfolio think about this stuff? How do we think about energy efficiency? We have real estate assets all across the United States, expanding to Mexico. We have industrial logistics platform in Europe, and so there's just a lot at play. And trying to understand not only what are some of the local and regional things that we need to focus on, but also what are our investors thinking about this from an efficiency standpoint, from a more broad ESG standpoint, environmental, social, and governance. And, why should we as an investor and a fiduciary be thinking about this? So our tagline has always been really the business case for sustainability, and that's right in line with this session topic because we've approached sustainability through a cost-saving mechanism, through a better service delivery to our tenants and those types of things. And so when we initially started benchmarking, it was energy, but we've been benchmarking water and waste as well throughout that whole duration. We participated in the BOMA Water and Waste Challenge, which won't steal the thunder. I saw that was also one of the other Partner of the Year webinars coming up, but we currently have a commitment with the Department of Energy's Better Building Challenge, not only for energy, but also water and waste. And so Energy Star really is a one-stop shop for tracking and benchmarking. Josh did a great job of talking about, the mechanics of benchmarking. I won't talk, in depth too much about that or how Portfolio Manager works, but as I think about this and how we've proven to be successful at USA Real Estate is to try to, really understand what is the value proposition. And the more clear and succinct you can be on communicating your value proposition, you will get that buy-in. Now, there's several stakeholders involved, right? You have the actual occupiers of the building, you have the leases that you maintain, you have internal folks around the property or asset management, and then you may even have your community or regional stressors or components to consider, and in our case, investors. So, understanding the value proposition and communicating it is the ideal way to get buy-in, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So these bullets here on the screen, these might be the somewhat obvious ways a sustainability or energy expert might communicate what benchmarking might provide. We can reduce expenses and consumption, we improve transparency, awareness, accountability, and this partnering or engagement component. These are great, and I think they're very digestible for most of our stakeholders to understand. But if we're looking to understand this buy-in component and really communicate it, we have to think in the terms of those stakeholders. These are what makes sense to us, but what makes sense to all the stakeholders that we might be talking to. So I gave an example. Again, this is a real estate example. I know maybe some of you it might resonate with you, but the real focus and takeaway here is to listen to your stakeholders and understand their goals, their strategies and levers. What makes their business work? So if you're a school, you would maybe have different ones. If you were a technology company, you may have something different. But within real estate, as a real estate investment advisor, our first and foremost goal is risk-adjusted returns. People invest, or firms and clients invest, and we are committing to, address or meet their risk-adjusted returns. Next one would be capital raising. So we're out there on the market, right? We're trying to raise money, we're attracting capital, and there's investor engagement, tenant retention, and attraction. That's similar to the one on the last page, but I'm mentioning that because that's ultimately how you get leases and people pay rent, and ultimately that's your net operating income and how a property is valued. And then maybe towards the end of your real estate life cycle, as you sell, how liquid is your asset? Can you actually sell it? Will people buy it with at the rate that you are offering? So this isn't any sustainability things. So what I want to do in this, next portion of my presentation is to try to communicate how do we look at these type of levers, these type of strategies and goals, and marry them or match them with, the sustainability, energy, and benchmarking things that we've talked about, right? And this is kind of, I hate to say it, sales 101, right? Like, understand your client and then match what you're offering. But really, I share that because, to be successful in your benchmarking efforts, to meet your compliance, to ultimately drive down your energy consumption, and, if you're in an organization that has a carbon footprint or greenhouse gas emissions target, you're going to need that buy-in to move the needle. And so in this, last part, I'm going to try to talk about incorporating those levers, but also marrying them with that value proposition. So, if you think about the benchmarking ordinance, which Josh covered very well, I'm not an expert in every market. I certainly try to stay up to speed on it because we have real estate assets within those markets. Even my local market is proposing benchmarking ordinances. I saw some of the city of San Antonio here on this call, so that's great to see the engagement, and we've been involved in our local benchmarking advisory group. And so if you're thinking about how do we marry maybe a business strategy or business lever with some of these sustainability things, the first one, benchmarking ordinances. So if you are in compliance, or I should say out of compliance, then you bring up real issues with your governance structure. Most investors want to see if there's any litigations, if there's fines, if there's ESG, environmental social governance, issues or concerns at hand. You certainly want to be a good corporate citizen, and you want to also be a good community citizen within your local areas. And so being out of compliance, ultimately creates an issue that would potentially impact some of those business levers. Reducing risk is a part of this, right? So let's say you own this building and you want to sell it, and there's a track record of out of compliance ordinance, benchmarking ordinance. That does not fare well, and it would probably be a discount at the time of sale. So you want to really think about this in the term that, what does our portfolio manager or sales team want to know, and we can ultimately help contribute towards the success of that transaction. Of course, differentiation is important. If you're attracting tenants trying to rent space, there's often a database of compliance. So that's an example of one of the value proposition and levers. Moving on to portfolio energy efficiency status, Josh showed a really good screen about being able to show your whole portfolio. We roll up our results into not only regions, but portfolios, funds, investment strategies. And so you want to be able to communicate the efficiency of that portfolio, and that really helps with capital raising. When an investor comes to our organization to place capital, they may have a certain risk and return expectation, and we'll match, the right strategy with that type of investment. So, as you look at the efficiency of our products, of our real estate, we really, want to be able to demonstrate a portfolio performance, how we've acquired properties, we've improved efficiency, reduced expenses, and ultimately delivered more value. So there's that one's fairly obvious. The tenant and investor engagement and demand. So, I think sometimes we talk about this split incentive, this challenge, or of our tenants not being willing to pay for maybe benchmarking or sustainability, or that there's a communication gap. And one thing we've done at USA Real Estate is to try to really understand who our tenants are, communicate, and oftentimes we've found that they have similar sustainability goals, targets, communication, marketing around the same strategies that we're also aiming to achieve. S&P 500 companies, the type of tenants we hope to rent to, in 2019 or 18, there was a 89% sustainable reporting metric from these types of companies, from S&P 500 companies. So if 89% of our, as a proxy, 89% of our tenants are engaged in sustainability reporting, then we can really position ourselves to be a real estate partner of choice, and not only help them achieve, but it just further deepens that relationship. I say investor demands as well. For the most part, our ESG, environmental, social, and governance, investor engagement has been really client-driven, right? They want to differentiate, they want to understand what their portfolio is doing. We're even seeing that shift now more into more of a regulatory compliance, whether it's through the SEC or some of our European investors. There is not only investor engagement and client-driven value, but there's risk of regulatory compliance, and so that's important. And then lastly, I'll share communication and differentiation. certainly from a marketing standpoint, but one example I'll share just close to home, given that we've gone through a unique and challenging year with the pandemic, is our communication strategies with our investors and tenants have been very unique over this last year. It's been frequent. It's been more detailed than probably ever, and we've been able to communicate not only health and safety, but also differentiation around energy performance, around being a good global steward. And I thought I would just share kind of a fun example here of that with the group. In these screens are a bit more detailed than, say, what is necessary for monthly benchmarking. But here's a portfolio that I'm sharing that shows over the 9 months of last year, from March 16th to the end of the year, how we fared on 20 of our office buildings. And we averaged a 20.2% energy reduction from the prior year. And interestingly enough, vacant buildings don't save energy on their own. They have to be managed. We've incorporated a very granular level type of analysis. In addition to benchmarking, we do energy analytics, and in some cases we saw that buildings coasted, and they operated as if they were occupied regardless of limited occupancy in these buildings. And so through active management, we really focused on that. And this second metric here, Insight Portfolio, this is our energy analytics firm. Their portfolio in average saw like a 16% reduction. I think the national average that we're seeing from different publications is probably closer to 10 to 12% on commercial office buildings. So if you compare that, against a broader set of managed other energy analytic clients, plus what the national averages were, our 1.5 million in energy savings is value that we create and also deliver back to our tenants. Most of these leases have recovered common area charges, so we ultimately bill our tenants less back on these periods. And so it's just a kind of a win-win. And the last example would be an actual building that we did. So this is in San Antonio, 300 Convent downtown. This shows daily load curves, and the lighter colors show what it was doing, and then overnight with some in-depth analysis, looking at system level on and off periods, we saw a instantaneous 9% reduction on nighttime loads. And we also were able to recalculate those start and stops, because if the building is coming on the next day, with limited occupancy, we were able to better plan and address those. So these are the types of things that we have focused on, and what it all comes down to really is just delivering value. This is accretive to our investment assets, and I just included a quote from our CEO. I'll read it. I know that's cheesy. You can read it too, but with this unique time, I thought it was appropriate. So, as the current crisis has reinforced our commitment to preserving value for our investors, we're reminded that USA Real Estate dedication to developing and operating innovative, high-performing, and sustainable real estate certainly supports this cause by driving benefits to tenants, partners, co-investors, employees, and communities we serve. So, we find that this type of engagement, this type of value add that we bring to our investment assets is in fact accretive, and it benefits all those involved. And I think with that, we're ready to answer some questions, and I'll pass it, I think, back to the moderator.